they are already in like a heart failure or compensated failure.
Mhm.
So I stopped asking, are you coping? Most people can cope until they can't. The better question is, what is coping costing you?
Are you just trying to cope with the pressure of your role or life in general? Resilience is not about pushing yourself to the limit just to get through the day and the week. It's about having what Toomas calls cognitive oxygen, so you have the room to think clearly and choose your next move. So let's dive in.
This is Leadership Sound Bites. Real leaders, real moments, real growth.
So welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with my very special guest, Toomas Sarev, a cardiologist. You and I met through Sphere,
Yeah.
and Sphere pulled together a bunch of humans that were interested in creating better experiences for humans from across the globe. So Sphere is in the Netherlands, you're in the UK, I'm in the United States. We have people that I think are from Africa and Ireland. I'm trying to think of the different parts of the globe. So it's a really cool blend of humans that came together, and the stuff that we chat about's awesome. So I appreciate time in the room with you, sir, because I know you're a cardiologist by day and helping people experience life better, especially in the healthcare space, because um, there's an overwhelming amount of people that are experiencing what I'll call burnout. And I know I have a passion in helping them get better at it, as do you. So you have some words, a quote to kick us off with, and then we'll get started.
Yes. No, I would start with lens, what I see every morning when I'm working at the hospital. So every morning in every hospital, someone runs a ward round. They walk up to the patient, look at the plan from yesterday, ask one question, what are we missing here? It's not optional. It's the most disciplined habit in medicine. But then when we think about leadership and let's say boardrooms, nobody runs that ward round on the strategy. So nobody walks into the boardroom, looks at last quarter's plan and asks the same question with the same rigor. That gap between how carefully we question the patient and how rarely we question the decision is where I've spent the last few years of my working life.
So when you say that, right, as a physician, you're looking around because you're managing to a care plan, an expected date of discharge. If it's not tracking as you expect it, you're looking at what do we need to change
Yeah.
so that we can get back on course to where the patient can start rehabbing in a better space. Because one of the more challenging environments for a patient to get better is a hospital with other sick people.
Yeah.
So, what has that resulted in, Tomas? Because you've gone from you're still in clinic, you're still in the hospital, you're still doing patient care. But how do you close that gap on the leadership perspective? Because I know you've got offerings and stuff you've been working on, but from your perspective, what do you see? What does better look like?
Yes. So when we ask that question, what does better look like? We need really a good clarity about what is the what is the map like, where is the compass pointing, and is there enough air? And metaphorically, what I mean with this air is we need some cognitive space, what I call cognitive oxygen. So air to be able to think in a structured way, and then if we put it into this perspective that we need a map like uh, critical thinking structures and skills, then that helps to test the plan before reality does it for you. So it's not like a criticism, it's a discipline. And there are certain tools we can do in healthcare. We often do post-mortems, something
Mhm.
bad happens, patient dies, and then we think that, oh my God, what happened? So
Mhm.
what did we do wrong? But if we do pre-mortem, for example, then we imagine the plan has already failed and we work backwards from there. And that surface is about 30% more failure modes than a standard risk assessment. So then we also need a compass, and this is where I am working with leadership development and facilitation. So we can teach a leader to run a flawless pre-mortem and still watch them burn out in 18 months because nobody asked whether the person holding the plan had anything left to give, actually. And then when the map tells you how to think better and the compass tells you who you are being while you do it, then this cognitive oxygen asks the question underneath both. So does this person, this team, actually have the cognitive, emotional, and relational margin to use either? So because a depleted team misses weak signals, a frightened team hides concerns, and exhausted leaders stops asking the hard question. And also, one of those observations is that when we start to lose curiosity, so we become overwhelmed with things, there is too much to carry, so everything becomes like a burden, go away, do not ask me, that kind of situation, then that is a really powerful signal that you need to stop and think and zoom out from the situation to understand where are you going, and that is part of the solution. So what good looks like or better looks like.
It's interesting when you were talking, because what comes to mind for me is and I was conversation yesterday with a physician, surgeon, just around this, getting ourselves out of this fight or flight space. So like you were talking about, when we're operating in this, and a lot of times we don't realize it, we just think it's part of the job to be air quotes stressed out. When we're in this fight or flight space, we've actually shut down the prefrontal cortex. So all the stuff that we need for innovation, creative thinking, critical thinking, empathy, all that stuff. And we're operating from this fight or flight space, right? So it's been activated, the amygdala, and we're scanning for danger. So the stuff that you're talking about is, we're not, or let me say this differently, how likely is someone to get curious, to your point about something, if they're in fight or flight? So my brain goes to, what would that look like? So you're in fight or flight, which your brain is responding to, our life is in danger. So hungry tiger, right, is chasing us. How likely are you going to sit back and go, so I wonder,
how hungry are you?
Yeah, how hungry are you? Or I wonder, is this really a hungry tiger? Is it possible that there's really not a hungry tiger? I mean, literally, you're not going to go into curiosity, because like everything else has been shut down and you're getting the heck out of there. And that's what happens. The barriers go up, the walls go up. I think about a castle and the drawbridge comes up, everything locks down and people are at the turrets ready to start shooting.
Yeah, exactly. The issue here is that healthcare doesn't train people to notice their own deterioration, and it trains them to notice everyone else's problems. And from day one, the message is subtle but consistent. Competence means coping, professionalism means containment, reliability means not adding to the burden. So when a clinician starts to struggle, the first thought isn't, I need support, it's I need to get through this week. And the nervous system adapts to abnormal, and this abnormal becomes then the new baseline or normal. And that's how I also interpret why it's difficult to find coaching clients in healthcare, because everybody is so tough, they just kind of drop when the last bit comes. And as a cardiologist, I recognize this pattern immediately, because it reminds me heart failure. So heart is a fantastic little pump. It can pump around like a tanker full of blood by the end of the day. But for a long time, the system compensates and you don't see the damage because the body is covering for it. And then a small extra stressor and it decompensates all at once like that. Bang, pulmonary edema, congestion. It's metaphorically the same in our working life, that clinicians go to the last drop for the same reason. They've normalized chronic fatigue, cynicism, the most important kind of sarcasm and cynicism, most important clinical sign of this coming detachment from their professional contract with their job until they are not at the early warning stage anymore. So they are already in like a heart failure or compensated failure. So I stopped asking, are you coping? Most people can cope until they can't. The better question is, what is coping costing you?
What kind of answer do you get? Do they know? I don't know that they know.
It's just the answer is often that, oh, I haven't thought about that angle,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that and when you then explore this further, then what comes out is that perfectionism is fear wearing a white coat. In medicine, mistakes really can harm people, and I think in your society it's even worse because there are more lawyers behind doctors' necks,
Yeah.
and so high standards matter. You do sometimes stuff which actually is no brainer. You do not need to do it, but you want to make yourself safe. And emotional logic gets distorted. So if I make a mistake, I'm dangerous. If I need help, I'm weak. If I show uncertainty, I lose credibility. And I have no problems to tell the patient, I don't know. I don't know the
Yeah.
answer to your question.
Yeah.
I'm not a god or police or a lawyer. I don't know. I will figure out. It's often medicine is a complex adaptive system. So what works is like safe to fail experiments. We do this little change, see what happens, because everybody is individual. But often people who actually are involved in this providing the care, healthcare professionals, they build the armor, and the armor becomes the self. And once that happens, asking for help doesn't feel like asking for support. It feels like risking exile almost.
Well, and the other thing, Tomas, too, is I was talking to a physician leader yesterday, and he said, Michele, there's mixed signals. He said, because he had gotten feedback, on certain behaviors and the way he shows up. And he said, yeah, I hear from administration, you're doing great, keep doing it, and promotions come and, more responsibility, all that stuff. And so that's where the conversation too is to create awareness for my experience, and I would love to hear yours, of there's a what, right, which is the stuff that we're doing. There's a how, which is yeah, you're going to take stuff across the line, but have you alienated the entire team? And how are you feeling while you're engaged in this activity?
Yeah.
Because when you go through these bursts of stress and outbursts and the condition that you create for other people, because it's going to come out somehow. You're not just going to keep a lid on it if you're stressed out. It's like the the pot that's boiling over. It's going to, and then it's going to release, and then you're going to come back to whatever level of normal stress that you're operating, and then it comes up again. And the triggers are less and less for the outbursts because your brain is scanning for all this stuff.
Yeah.
So the slightest little thing, you're responding. And this is one of the things I asked him. I said, you're in the business of saving lives. And he is, as you are, Toomas. And when we're in this stress mode, you're actually signaling that your life is the one that's in danger, when in reality, it's not in that moment. So it's like when you go into like the emergency response, trauma response, the code reds, whatever you want to call them, right? To where you've got to activate the team, there's a level of knowing and practice in that. So you're not freaked out and stressed out like somebody else who hasn't practiced and have the muscle memory around what to do when this emergency shows up.
Yeah.
It's the rest of it that you all haven't been taught about. It's like, how do I manage when there's competing priorities, when the emails are stacking up, when, I'm the hospitalist on the floor and the ED is reaching out, three people have. Well, it's like, okay, the expectation is not for you to answer all three calls at once. It's
Exactly.
not possible. But yet, to your point, if I'm a perfectionist and I'm telling myself that's the expectation,
Yeah,
It's a recipe for disaster.
exactly. It causes in the end brain fog because you are constantly switching from one task to another. There are like 15 fires metaphorically, and you are firefighting, and then it's easy to make mistakes. It's easy to forget things. You almost need a personal assistant who would run with you to write
Hmm.
up everything what you say and what you promise. And phone is calling, then you are consulting with someone else, then you cannot finish that because another call is coming. And
Hmm.
in the end of the day, I found myself in a situation where I had like literally 2.5 kilograms of paperwork. In this old world, we have everything still on paper on my desk, and I had no physical space and time and margin buffer to deal with that, and there was no help. And then I said that thank you very much, but I can't carry on like that. I then resigned from my substantive post, not because I stopped loving the work, but because I
Yeah.
could feel my own thinking degrading under this workload. And
Wow.
I decided that that was worth naming rather than enduring, so that's why it happened exactly. And I think so. I would like to ask your view. What do you think? What is making it so difficult to hold up mirror? Because thinking is really difficult in healthcare because we say that we need a reflective practice, but is this easy to think about yourself and see yourself? So ideally, you would need someone else to do that, to hold the mirror up, because we can't be coaches for ourselves. We are too close to ourselves, our own thinking. And I think real reflection isn't thinking, it's letting yourself be seen by yourself. And that's
Mm.
much harder. So safe mirror might show you that I'm more tired than I admit. I become dismissive. I resent the people who need me. People avoid that mirror not because they lack curiosity, but because insight asks for change, and change can feel impossible when you are in this hamster wheel.
Hmm.
So, so
Yeah, it's
how do you
interesting.
see
It's
that? What
interesting,
do you see
Tomas,
in your
because
practice?
yeah, what happened? So I've had the privilege to, through another organization, to coach a lot of physicians through a debrief process. So first it was the 360 debrief, and then people who get feedback at a certain level get the gift of coaching. And part of it too, my experience has been, is there hasn't been the development expectation opportunity presented to physicians to be, I'm going to say the word vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
because if you think about how the industry is
Yeah.
constructed, and it was it dawned on me probably, I don't know, 4 months ago, the whole idea that docs write
Mm-hmm.
orders.
Yeah.
They're at the top of the heap, okay? As far as the daunting responsibility, all the stuff going on. And granted, there's other care team members now that can, do other things as we work at top of licensure. But that's a daunting responsibility.
Yeah.
When you think about, are they accurate? Are they, and so there's this unwritten thing that I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them carry the burden of, that it's all on me.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
when you're going through life with that thing of it's all on me, um, and you're the one writing the orders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Air quote, who could you reach out to unless someone's had that, intentional awareness developed
Yeah.
within you to go, wait a minute, I do have a care team. I do ultimately make the final decision, just like leadership does, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people have this interesting view, because when you look at the visual display of leadership
Mm-hmm.
in an organization,
Yeah.
they depict it in an org chart that has stacks of people above
Mm.
other people. And people internalize that as
Yeah.
if that's how you play it out in real life. And what I've recently started creating awareness for people is they have to display it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you'd have just a mush black line, right? Because everyone's names and titles will be all on top of everyone else, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that's how we show up, because if we show up where everyone's on the same line, then we're not, and I tell them, I said, you're not Tom Hanks on an island with a bunch of FedEx packages.
Yeah.
There are other humans around. And so what does that look like to collaborate and co-collaborate and be able to tap in to all the intelligence and, more
Exactly.
importantly, perspectives of
But
the other people on the team?
what we do instead, we kind of hide in silos
Yes.
and then say that do not come to play in my sandbox. So
Yeah.
a little bit like
Because
that.
I'm the one that writes the orders. I have the
Mm-hmm.
ultimate responsibility. Yes, but in order to make the best informed decision, we need those other perspectives.
Yeah.
You may have an idea, one way of doing it that may have worked before. And to your point, we're dealing with humans.
Yeah.
And there may be some funky little thing in the chart
Yeah.
that somebody else may have picked up on. As AI is integrating more and more into
Mm-hmm.
healthcare, I think this is one of the larger opportunities to
Yeah.
take vast amounts of information so that all of a sudden your history is so comprehensive, because the AI is able to look for pattern
Yeah.
recognition and be able to present different options, that the team now has more information when that happens more readily, that you've got the individual humans that are part of the care team. And yeah, the physician's the ultimate one writing the order, but that doesn't mean that you're the only source of information.
Yeah. So I don't ask why healthcare professionals don't ask for help. I ask, what have we built that makes intelligent, compassionate people believe they have to become unwell before they are allowed to be human? So basically, the support system around them and the thinking space is missing, and we, in a way, we become like donkeys for the faulty system. So we do the donkey work, which we shouldn't do because the system is not functional fully, and that creates also a huge gap between the front line and the boardroom. So boardroom is living in their own world. They have their own high visions, but then the front line is dealing, on the workshop floor with a real life, and in English there is a word sorry.
You're
And
fine.
all that needs to be absorbed somehow and dealt with, and they have not enough conditions to do it properly. And then their kind of metrics are not reflected in the dashboard on the boardroom's wall, because this is about different things, and we would help these people by helping them to really to create conditions, because we just talk about psychological safety and so psychological safety without a mechanism is a poster on the wall. So telling people to speak up without giving them a structured way to do it is like telling a patient to get better without a treatment plan. And we also put the focus on a wrong thing, because resilience is not lack of yoga classes or cognitive psychotherapy or behavioral therapy. It's like a systemic issue which we can't push on people and put the label on them that you are not resilient, you need to be more resilient. It's not definition of resilience. So and in my view, resilience can be defined so that it's having enough cognitive oxygen left after the pressure to still see clearly, stay decent to the people around you, and choose your next move instead of just surviving it. So toughness, it's like a tough love, toughness gets you through the shift, but resilience is what is still there afterwards.
Well, so the resilience, I think, removes the dramatic. Number one, you're at stress level here, and then you're just got going over the top at the
Yeah.
other. I would love to come back to, because what you said is what causes this. I think the majority, and I support leaders in healthcare and have been
Mm-hmm.
since 1998. And so I see, because I did process improvement for years, I'm in there in the front line
Mm-hmm.
seeing the work and the workarounds, and they're great at getting the work done because they're workarounds. And then the message at the top is
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this must be working because we're getting it done. And people are complaining that we can't do it, and yet things aren't falling out that they could see at the macro level. And so part of the thing too, Tomas, is to let people know, and I'm not talking about causing harm to patients, letting people die. That's not what I'm talking about. But something has to drop if we're busy keeping all plates spinning, and the
Yeah.
thing that's impacted is our health, and we're working 14-hour days or 16-hour
Mm-hmm.
days back to back because there isn't fill in the blank,
Yeah.
we have to be able to, and this is part of the coaching, to say, hey, if you're saying we can't do this,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no evidence at the top because they're looking at macro KPIs
Mm-hmm.
that it's not getting done, then it's almost like crying wolf.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to let stuff slip
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
thoughtfully. And it's a really hard thing for people to do when you're in the business of saving lives.
Yeah.
So it's the importance of making the distinction between what is the work, what's the priority of the work that we're going to do and we're going to support, and
Mm-hmm.
what doesn't get done
Yeah.
because there's frankly isn't the resources to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the thing that's going to negatively impact patient outcomes or the patient, right? It's not going to cause
Yeah.
harm. But we have to be strategic about it. And the other piece that it's important to do is to communicate to your one up,
Mm-hmm.
this is what we're focused on because we can't do all of it.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we're focused on. This is what we're not going to do right now, that we're parking lot it or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So you're not doing it like retaliation, all
Yeah.
right? But this is the strategy we're doing so that this is what we can do with the resources we have. So that what you're doing is the message that you're giving to leadership. And it's not just screaming at them, but it's saying, you know what, this is what we have bandwidth for.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing, to where that communication goes
Mm-hmm.
up the chain to the top of the house. And all of a sudden, the message aligns with the outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it takes intentionality. And so when I'm
Yeah.
in the room with people that think they're supposed to keep everything spinning, and they're
Mm-hmm.
literally in the room with me, surgeons
Mm-hmm.
and others crying
Yeah.
because they're so stressed, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, put the plate down.
Yeah.
This isn't the plate that you need to be spinning. But they
Mm-hmm.
told me that no,
Yeah.
figure out the priorities, communicate to your one up, and say, hey, if you got different priorities, let me know. But here's the
Mm-hmm.
bandwidth. We
Yeah.
have to hold that line because otherwise, we think the people at the top of the house don't care. They care. They're just not getting the consistent message and KPI and
Mm-hmm.
outcome that goes along with it.
Yeah. But that would require both parties to use their receiver, processor, and sender in a reasonable ratio so that you use your ears and mouth in the same ratio, that you listen, you ask questions. But at the moment, what I observe is that healthcare has turned into that kind of telling culture where they drop down a PowerPoint file with bullet points that this needs to be done and this is what you are going to do without any conversation, without understanding at first, so what are our issues? Like, for example, recently all our medical secretaries were turned into some sort of clinical support officers, and there is a pool of these people who have no whatsoever contact with the consultants, which is a disaster and causes a lot of chaos. And that is a process where, like, a manager comes to you and says, Michele, we have this challenge and you have to do X, Y, Z. And then Michele looks at her plate and thinks that, oh, I don't like that. That's a BS. It doesn't work from my lens. But instead, think about how different would it be if someone comes to you, your manager, and says, Michelle, we have this challenge, and I know you are the most resourceful person here. How would you solve that? Give me some ideas. That would be a totally different approach, but that is missing because these people who are in managerial role, they want to progress in their career. They change their workspace every 6 months almost, and they are afraid of saying that, please help me to understand what is in your work, what is on your plate, what is important for you, how can I support you in the best possible way. That's not happening. There is lack of communication, and I strongly believe that if you think about success in any field in your life, so perhaps 5% comes from your credentials, your little
Your title.
titles. 15% perhaps comes from your actual skills, and all the rest is communication skills. If you are an a-hole professor who knows from A to Z everything, no one wants to listen to you because there is no communication.
Yeah.
So that is the key, and I see also an issue that leaders in healthcare, doctors are disengaged because they are just suffering from learned helplessness. Whatever I do, it won't help. So I disengage, I create my own shield, armor, and silo, and then what happens is that they are totally disengaged. The leadership is managerial, all the healthcare is managerial led, and there is this disconnect between the front line and the boardroom, and that is a huge issue because how can you motivate anyone when they are disengaged? You can't. It's just not working. So whatever you say, there is no trust, and then in part of my work, I have actually created a kind of what I call anti-asshole principle. So
what is it? What?
Anti-asshole
That's
principle.
what I thought you
So
said. Okay.
yeah, it's the plainest name in the framework, and that is deliberate because the claim is simple. Pressure is not permission to lose your dignity, your curiosity, and your candor. And when people run low on this cognitive oxygen, they just usually do not collapse. They get controlling, dismissive. They try to be very oddly certain because it's so uncertain around them. That's a kind of compensation, and they become short with anyone who asks a real question. And how to then diagnose that and recognize that not to become that kind of person, because I'm sure no one wants to become that kind of person, and often we are promoted into our new leadership role because you are a great surgeon or you are great in certain thing in your profession, but actually you have not been given any leadership skills. And like emotional intelligence is something which you can develop. So how to read the room, the tension, how to understand people, adaptive leadership, how to be, how to cope with opposing different polarities. How do you do that? It's a skill, but that skill can be learned, but we haven't been able to give that skill to all people who are in leadership roles in healthcare. And managers often they choose the simple way out, like tick box exercise, and then they, instead of creating a common ground, understanding, and then strategy, and then tactics, how to reach these goals, they start from the other end, from tactics, and that's the tick box micromanagement. And then everything fails, and then we wonder, we shoot ourselves into our legs, and then wonder why are we not running faster.
Yeah.
Perhaps
It's
that's too
interesting.
dark picture, but this is where we are at the moment.
Well, it is. There's some nuances to that, Toomas. And I know you've been living in that world, and I lived in that world from a different perspective. Couple things to call out, right? My experience is that I found is typically people that are difficult or challenging to work with, and I'm gonna put those people that you were describing the way they are in that bucket, have unmet needs. Okay. And when we can approach the other human that way, instead of saying they're a jerk, they don't care about us, They only care about, promoting up in the organization. They're going to be gone in 2 years anyway, because this is the stuff I hear. Instead of having that narrative, which, by the way, how likely are you to want to collaborate with somebody that you put him in that bucket? You're not. So we can look at it and go, oh, they're acting not great, to your point, like an asshole. And it's like, okay, so I'm going to mark them as challenging or difficult to work with. They have unmet needs. So let me approach it as, what are those?
Yeah.
There's certain things that they need, because to your point, humans do not show up at work every day going, I'm going to be a jerk today. I wonder whose day I can really screw with. Who drives to work going, hey, I want to be the biggest jerk on the planet? No one.
No one.
There may be someone out there, and if you feel that way, I'm sorry. But the vast majority of people are not intending to show up that way. To your point, they don't see the off ramp.
Yeah.
All they know is they're in this hamster wheel cycle. And I think part of the point that you and I are talking about is some other resource, coaching, training, awareness, whatever it may be, that says there's another way. And while it's not it's not brain surgery.
Yeah.
It is also not easy. It's simple. It's simple.
Yeah.
But it's not easy, because it takes practice and habit building. But I'm going to tell you, Toomas, the shifts and the changes that we can make in people. First of all, we manage ourselves so we can get ourselves out of fight or flight. We can get ourselves, to your point, I love the whole cognitive oxygen, because it's breathing room. It is getting yourself out of fight or flight so that your brain is firing and back online. And the thing that comes back online is empathy, right? For the other human that's doing whatever they're doing. Is when we're in that space, we can ask ourselves, what would cause a well-intentioned person to do or say these things, to show up that way? Because I guarantee you, the story that we're telling ourselves is not a well-intentioned person's story. They don't care about us. They only care about themselves. They only care about check the box. It's all about their career, on and on and on. But when we say what would cause a well-intentioned person to do or say that, we can create some other scenarios, and all of a sudden we have empathy for that other human. And then we can have oxygen, breathing room, cognitive oxygen to say, so how do we approach this? What conversations can I have? What judgment can I set aside? Because judgment clouds everything.
Yeah, exactly. We are so judgmental. We could be more descriptive in our observations instead of putting labels, And,
Bingo.
And there is this aspect also what I wanted to add to what you just said, that most leadership development treats the person as the person and the job as two separate curricula. So skills here, well-being over there. But actually, we should refuse that split, because nobody actually experiences their life in two halves. It's like integration of all that. And as soon as we start to see that in that lens, that helps. And in this way, what you said about these difficult persons, they have their own agenda, and that is not met. And that kind of coaching style leadership question, that how can I support you better? How would you, what would you need to do your job at its best? So that would help, but no one asks that question. And that's where coaching, creates this protected thinking space for good people doing difficult work in complex systems, and holding up mirror sometimes is the best way. And from my experience, the best coaching is sometimes when you just ask the first question, and then the person is just letting it come out, and you just listen. They hear themselves back, and you don't need to say anything. They go away with clarity. Yes, I know what to do now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the most paradoxical way of coaching sometimes.
Yeah, thank
So
you. I so appreciate the time in the room with you. You're welcome to come back anytime. As we
thank you.
wrap up today, Toomas, what are one or two things that you'd love people to walk away with?
Yeah, I think it would be good to take a deep breath and self reflect, or ask that, the question isn't, are you coping? But the better question could be, what is coping costing you? So
Mm-hmm.
what's the price? And what's the benefit of that?
Mm-hmm.
That's really sometimes the trickiest question. So, or actually the question, what do you want? And get really clear about that. And also from healthcare lens, I think we scrutinize the patient more carefully than we scrutinize our own decision. And that's not the healthcare problem. That's every organization that has ever mistaken confidence for rigor. I think that's really important. And that wanting people to speak up requires a structured way to do it, and conditions for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have to create the space.
Yeah,
So people can say it. You reminded me, I wrote something down the other day that struck me. Because you said asking about what do you want, and in the back of my head, it's like, I don't know that people know how to articulate it that way.
yeah,
And so what I wrote down that I'm going to use as a quote and post because it just struck me is you can't focus on what you don't want and get what you want.
yeah,
And so a lot of times what happens is the reels running in people's head and what they're verbalizing is all the stuff that they don't want. And it happens, leadership and healthcare, all the stuff, because that's the stuff that's in your face that you
yeah,
just want it to go away. And the thing that can cut through that is to get really clear on the condition that you want to create, the feeling that you want to have.
yeah,
And it's a significant shift. And a lot of times people don't even realize the thing that's occupying the majority of their thoughts is what they want to go away.
yeah, yeah. And one of those principles in Gestalt and coaching is that, we often struggle with change. Why do not people change? So what is so difficult? But you cannot change who you are not. You can only change who you are, which means that
Mhm.
you need to take a different lens, or grow, or learn, or it doesn't happen overnight just like that.
Mm-mm.
You need to
No.
do some effort.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
so appreciate the time. This has been Leadership Soundbites with Michele and Toomas. And until next time, have an awesome, awesome day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle.